Hi, boys and girls. It's Miss Braverman here for another Read Aloud. So if you didn't already know, this month, April, is Autism Awareness Month. And autism awareness is something that's really important to me because my cousin has autism. And it's something that my family and I have been learning about for a really long time, just to try to be able to better understand and interact with my cousin, and even more so to kind of advocate for him and help other people learn a little bit more about autism, to make the world a little bit of a more inclusive and better place. So if you don't know anything about autism, the read aloud that we're going to do today actually starts us reading a book about a young girl with autism spectrum disorder. It is a type of neurological disorder that some people are diagnosed with, and it kind of affects their ability to communicate with others, and sometimes brings on other sensory issues or kind of sensitivities, like not liking loud noises, or either wanting to be held really, really tightly, or not being touched at all. It can really depend on who you are. Okay, so today I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to read another book on Epic. So I'm going to Epic, and I typed in my class code, and I'm actually going to search up all books on autism, and there's a lot. So if you want to learn a little bit more about autism spectrum disorders, you can read a book like this, which is like a nonfiction book, okay? These are a couple of picture books too, but today I want to read Penguin Days. Okay, I'm going to make it full screen. Move myself down here. Let's go. Chapter 1. It took us 2 days, 8 movies, 4 chapter books, and 3 throw-ups to reach Aunt Joss's house. Mom only flipped her lid twice. Lexi needed 12 diaper changes. Dad kept turning up the sound on the radio and telling us we'd be there soon. Auntie Joss lives in Lincoln, North Dakota, where it was as flat as our school field, without all the kids, and with more corn. There were no mountains or oceans, but we did see some tall buildings. Dad said they were grain elevators. I didn't understand why grade would have to go up and down an elevator, but Dad said he didn't know how they worked and was too tired from driving to think about it. Lincoln, North Dakota is a long, long way from home, I said. It is, Mom said, but we're going for a very important reason. Auntie Joss is getting married, and you're going to be a flower girl. Dad turned down the radio. It's an extra special wedding because it will take place in the field behind Aunt Joss's farmhouse. You'll walk down the aisle in front of Auntie Joss and lead her to Charlie, said Mom. I stuck my hand out the window and let the hot air wave it up and down. You already told me twice. Auntie Joss should get married at our house. We have flowers in our backyard, not elevators. Dad turned the radio back up. At last we arrived at Auntie Joss's house. She came running across the grass and pressed a wet kiss on my cheek. I said, yuck, and wiped it off with my sleeve. Mom said, sorry, Joss, it's been quite a trip. They hugged each other for a long time while Dad took Lexi out of the car seat and let her walk on the grass. Lexi was just learning to walk, and she fell down a lot. I once asked Dad if there was something wrong with her because she didn't seem to be getting the hang of it. But he said it was normal, and I did the same thing when I was her age. Finally, Mom and Auntie Joss finished hugging. My aunt crouched in front of me and said, how's my flower girl? I'm fine, thank you. When do I look for the cow poop? Auntie Joss tilted her head to the side. Sorry? When am I going to walk down your farm and spread flowers on the ground so you don't step in cow poop on your way to marry almost Uncle Charlie? Auntie Joss laughed. You're precious. Gems are precious, I said. I'm not a gem, but I would like to be an amethyst. They are purple. Auntie Joss threw her arms in the air and laughed and laughed. Her laughing made me feel jittery. And she still hadn't told me when I would do my flower girl job. I decided to help Lexi walk. The wedding is in 2 days, Dad said. I nodded while I held Lexi's hands. Dad knew I liked to have answers to my questions. Come see your cousins, Auntie Joss said. They're in the backyard. No, thank you, I said. I didn't need any cousins. Lexi was enough family for me. I didn't need more friends either. I already had a best friend named Irma. She rode the bus with me every day. She liked looking for insects on the school grounds, and she liked reading about penguins during partner reading time. Dad's eyebrow shot up his forehead like a cat. Dad's eyebrow shot up his forehead like a caterpillar on a trampoline. It's polite to say hi to your cousins, Lauren. You haven't seen them for a very long time. I hadn't seen my cousins since I was 3 years old. Dad said the reason we drove to Lincoln, North Dakota was because the last time we came, we flew in an airplane and nobody wanted to live through the experience of flying with me again. He said probably all the other passengers on the plane needed to get their hearing checked when they arrived, thanks to all my screaming. Of course I screamed. I don't like change, and an airplane was not like my house or my school. Mom and Dad always say my brain works differently than other people's brains because I have autism spectrum disorder. They say my different brain is one of the things they love about me. But the other people on the plane didn't know about my brain. So all the screaming made them want to flip their lids. Mom and Dad must have decided it was easier to drive all the way to Lincoln, North Dakota, than to teach the people on the airplane about autism spectrum disorder. Before we start chapter 2, I want to stop and kind of talk about a couple of the things that make Lauren who she is. So on this page, she talks about how she has autism spectrum disorder. And you might have noticed as we were reading this chapter that there were a couple of characteristics about Lauren that kind of stuck out. One, like that she doesn't like change, or another, that she didn't really have any interest in meeting new people like her cousins or saying hi to them because she's not used to them. Some of these things are things that people with autism spectrum disorder may have trouble adjusting to. So as we read the next chapter, I also want you to keep in mind that, and I want you to think, are there any other things that you might pick up on that are unique to Lauren? Or that maybe we all might feel, but Lauren might feel a little bit extra because of her autism. Chapter 2. I followed Auntie Joss along a concrete stepping path beside the house and into the backyard. There's no cow poop here, I said. I sure hope not, Auntie Joss said. The cow plop should stay on the field with the cows. Cow plop? That's what we call it in these parts. I liked the sound of cow plop. Plop, plop, plop. Can we go look for cow plop now? Maybe later, Auntie Joss said. She smiled, which I liked better than her laugh. I looked for insects and as I followed her, since there wasn't any cow plop around. I found 3 spiders, which have 2 body parts and 8 legs and are definitely not insects. 2 girls and a boy were running around in the backyard. The 3 kids stopped running in circles and ran toward us instead. Hi, Lauren, they shouted. I covered my ears and stepped behind my dad's legs. He moved to the side. I wished he were more like a tree. The cousins screeched to a stop right in front of me. I stuck out my hand to the tall girl. Hi, nice to meet you. She looked at my hand and giggled. Don't you remember me? I shook my head. I'm Sophia, she pointed to the other girl. That's my sister Zoe, and that's our brother Kevin. I stuck out my hand again, but they didn't shake it. My special helper teacher, Mrs. Ligorio, whose name meant green lizard, but who was a pretty lady, taught me to shake hands and look at people's faces when I meet them. I guess my cousins didn't get to have lessons with a special helper teacher. The first time we met, my friend Irma shook my hand and said hello. After school finished, she went back to Sweden, but only for the summer. She would be with me for the start of the 3rd grade. We would be in a new class, which was scary, even though I was happy to say goodbye to our old classroom teacher, Mrs. Patel breathed deeply through her nose a lot when she talked to me. On the last day of school, I gave Mrs. Patel the card I made for her. It said, Dear Mrs. Patel, thank you for teaching me this year. My dad said he hopes you have a restful summer because you deserve it after teaching me. Mrs. Patel held the card up in front of her nose, and her eyes got all shiny when she read the card. Usually, when people's eyes water, it meant they were sad. I wonder why my card made her sad. She gave me a hug. I'm going to miss you, Lauren. I hope you have a restful summer, too. I didn't want to have a restful summer. I wanted to have a fun summer with Irma looking for insects in the forest. But Irma was in Sweden. Maybe they had forests in Sweden, but they didn't have me there to help her find insects. So I had to meet my cousins instead, which wasn't restful at all. It made my insides feel like squirmy snakes. Put your foot in for tag, Kevin shouted. I covered my ears with my hands again. Sophia and Zoe put their feet in next to Kevin's. I stepped behind my dad. Don't you want to play? Sophia asked, peering around his leg. I shook my head. I wrapped my arms around my dad's waist. I felt cold and hot at the same time. Dad tried to peel my hands off of him, but I grabbed tighter. Mrs. Ligorio told me that when you felt scared or angry, you were using a very old part of your brain, older than my dad, older than the principal, as old as the dinosaurs. She said it was the lizard part of your brain. Whenever I flipped my lid, that was the part I was using. I should try and let the other part of my brain, the thinking part, take control. She taught me some tricks to help, like squeezing my favorite eraser and doing square breathing, but it was still hard to do. I clung to Dad's waist and tried to get the thinking part of my brain to take control. I did some square breathing. I pictured walking around a square as I breathed. I breathed in and counted to 4. Then I turned the corner of the square, held my breath, and counted to 4 again. I turned again and breathed out for 4. Then I held my breath for 4 on the last side of the square. I remembered to start breathing again, which was important because sometimes when I practiced, I forgot and kept holding my breath until Mrs. Ligorio tapped me on the shoulder. Dad nudged me into the backyard and went over to talk to a lady who had been sitting in a chair reading her book. Hi, Margaret, he said. She put down her book, stood up, and gave him a hug. He hugged her back, so I guess she was supposed to be there. Chapter 3. Now, I think we'll stop there, and you can read Chapter 3 and even more on your own if you'd like. But I hope that you picked up on a couple of those characteristics that I was talking about. Like on this page, where Lauren talks about her square breathing, and she talks about some of her other coping mechanisms of how she tries to get control of her body when she has really big feelings. Okay? I know she also talked about the way that she introduced herself to her cousins, wanting to shake their hands. Even though they thought that that was a little bit odd. Or when her teacher cried at her card, but she didn't understand because the card wasn't sad. Sometimes when someone has an autism spectrum disorder, they have a hard time understanding other people's emotions, or sometimes picking up on social cues. I have to say, this book is really one of my favorite books about this topic because I think that it does an excellent job at kind of bringing you into the world of someone who is living with an autism spectrum disorder. I also noticed, I've only read Penguin Days, but I also noticed that looks like it's a series because there's another book called Slug Days. So if you really liked the first 2 chapters, go on Epic, type in autism, or you can even type in Penguin Days and read on to find out more. All right, guys, I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you at our class meeting. Bye.